This is the definition of environmental education, which says that it is the process of recognizing values and clarifying concepts in order to develop skills and attitudes necessary to understand and appreciate the interrelatedness among man, his culture, and his biophysical surroundings. So just understand this thing. Environmental education is a process. It's a process that itself says that it is lifelong. It is not something which ends somewhere. And it recognizes values, it clarifies concepts about what is happening all around, how things are changing, what events are taking place, and also importance is being laid to development of the skills, how we can solve or mitigate the problems if any are there in the ambient environment. And we have to understand the interrelationships between we as human beings, our activities, our interferences with the culture to which we belong to, and our biophysical surroundings, at what place we are living, how we are managing the resources, how we are taking care of the immediate flora and fauna, what importance are we giving to the biodiversity of the region we belong to. So it has lot many things. If you break down the definition of environmental education, you will see, first of all, it says that it is a process. It goes on and ever. With every day we are getting ourselves environmentally educated. Then it recognizes values of the importance of the nature systems and clarifies concepts, removes the myths, clarifies the concepts related to various processes, and for the development of the skills, so that we are through problem solving, through different brainstorming, through different means and measures, we are able to, we have the skills necessary, we must have the attitude for solving the environmental issues, and we appreciate the interrelatedness, so that we do not think that we are something apart. We are a part of the system along with other creatures who are inhabiting this planet. UNESCO has highlighted the role of environmental education in protecting the quality of the life. So it clearly says about the social well-being of the people. Okay, so it improves our well-being, it improves our quality of life. Through environment protection, of course, poverty eradication is a sub-part of environment conservation, minimizing inequalities and promoting sustainable development. This was stated by UNESCO, and it has highlighted the role of environmental education. So it not only talks about the protection of the environment and the various components of flora and fauna, but the social well-being part here, you can see eradication of the poverty, minimization of the inequalities which exist in the societies. That is a social well-being. So it clearly establishes the relationship between environment protection at one hand and promotion of the social well-being at the other hand. So we believe that with environment protection and environment being in its pristine state, there will be well-being of the people which will be sustainable. That is very important, and we must understand and recognize this thing very clearly. So what are the objectives of environmental education? To raise the awareness, so that people have a kind of knowledge about what is happening all around. They are aware of the different happenings, of the disasters, of the different kind of, you can say, processes which are taking place, about the cycles of nature, about the different nutrients, about the different biodiversity. So that is awareness. We are aware. Then there should be knowledge. We must be able to point out the distinction between what is right and what is wrong. Consider environmental pollution. So we have the knowledge to see that what actions of ours may be detrimental to the, and which may contribute to environmental pollution. So that is my knowledge. The attitude is, what kind of attitude do I have towards thinking these environmental problems as something which is created by someone and should be solved by someone else, but our attitude, our role, how do we, and that comes from the definition part, that establishing the linkages between man, culture, and biophysical surroundings. So we must think that we are a part of the system. And COVID pandemic has clearly taught us that we live in the interconnected, interrelated world. We are not separate. So in the ecosystems of the forest, whatever is happening, it may come to human beings. We are related with each other. There is nothing called as vacuum. We cannot separate ourselves from the other ecosystems. So that attitude will determine the skills to solve those issues, evaluation ability to understand what is right, what is wrong, what is the correct form, and participation, active participation of different stakeholders at different community level. This is one of the important objective of environmental education. So when you will look at the objectives of environmental education in detail, you will be able to kind of establish relationship between the hidden social well-being agenda of environmental education. That you will be clearly, you can interpret in this way, whether it is awareness. So hidden, it is that people should be made aware. If you are living near a waste disposal site, so people should be aware that this is something which is dangerous, which is something not good for health. So awareness about the issues, awareness about the different happenings in the environment. So that has a hidden social well-being objective in the mind. Similarly, knowledge, attitude, skills, evaluation, and participation of the people in different environment related activities. Then role of education in promoting social and environmental well-being at different levels. You know that at the primary level, from the first grade, we are teaching EVS in our schools, to the students, to the children. So this is the primary level. In the primary level, the objective is to sensitize them so that they are able to recognize different plant species, different animal species, cloud formation, rain occurring, weather, climate, small things. Then at the secondary level, we move on to the higher level where we expect the students, to bring out something new, to talk about something related to the factors behind the different problems that we are facing today. And then the higher education. How does higher education contribute? And this at different levels, at different whether it is primary level, secondary level, higher education level. One thing is very important and which our curricula are mostly missing is that we have to link it with the local issues. Particularly, we talk about climate change in primary, secondary, and higher education level everywhere, but at the primary level, instead of talking about the climate change, there should be, taught about how rainfalls occurred and how rainfalls have changed, how temperatures are changing according to their local place where they have been living. This is something very important, and without having this kind of interconnections, all our efforts and all the objectives which we have set for environmental education will be in vain, will be not possible. So there is a role of education, there is an importance of environmental education in promoting social and environmental well-being. But again, this is also very important that what information are we passing on, what kind of information are we giving to our children, and that will highlight and that will serve the purpose of social well-being, which we ultimately strive under environmental education. And there have been traditional ways. If we look beyond, why we are emphasizing lot on these you can say importance giving to the local, regional, common issues, because traditionally we have been doing this. We have been taking care about the trees, the rivers, the plants, the mountains traditionally. But now we are, renaming it under environmental studies or environmental education. But traditionally, there is a role of indigenous knowledge. The people who have lived for ages, they know how important it is to conserve the soil, how important it is to conserve water. And they have been doing this since ages. They know water conservation methods more than our engineering methods. They know how to, according to seasons, how to grow the crops. what kind of medicines they can get from the nearby plants, what kind of weather forecasting also they used to do with their own indigenous knowledge. So this indigenous knowledge which is there among our communities who have been practicing this, not only knowing but practicing also, preaching also, and sharing from one generation to another. They have been doing this. And another important factor is there is a, in our culture, in our ethos, we know that worshipping of trees, caring of other organisms, the diversity which is there on the planet, worshipping different animals, considering tree plantation as something very pious, not throwing anything in the water bodies. We have been doing this. This is a role of our culture and ethos, and it was linked with the social well-being. So, in traditionally, also environmental education was, imparted to the masses in some form or the other, basically considering the well-being of the people, thinking that because whether it is not sleeping under a tree during nights, or whether it is saying that not using any kind of, or no, not going out anywhere at night, or not throwing anything in the water bodies in the fear of the punishment. And also it was a kind of a social well-being message hidden in our all efforts while promoting environment education or taking care of the environment at various forms. So the thrust of environmental education should be improving access to basic education. That is something very important, because unless and until we are able to provide education to our children, the environmental education will not serve any purpose. Then reorienting basic education programs. That is what we have been stressing again and again. We need to reorient our curricula. We need to, because at every level, from even in the entire state, the curriculum, the syllabus remains the same. Somewhere in the entire country, the syllabus is same. But India, if you consider, it's a diverse country. Geography is different, topography is different, climatic conditions are different. In those conditions, how can we think of imparting the concepts, the different processes across this? How is it possible to give the same piece of information to the people, to the children who are, or to the students, I must say, who are, entirely diverse situations, entirely diverse conditions they are living in? So when you talk about only the endangered species, when you talk about the tigers or the rhinoceros, why don't we talk about the local or the state animals, state birds, which may be in the state of, extinction very soon? So this kind of approach is very much required. So the teaching water conservation in those places where there are always occurrence of flood every year, what is the sense? If you talk about in the coastal areas, if you're talking about something related to agriculture, something related to landslides, it doesn't make sense. We have to educate our children, our masses are taking into consideration their this thing. However, our curriculums and our educational programs are not so customized. We need that. And public understanding and awareness development is very essential, because through mass media, through different means, televisions, programs, radios, newspapers, somewhere or the other, a kind of a public awareness, which however has grown. In the last few years, it has grown, but still it needs to be worked on. Training part is very essential. How do we train those who are working in NGOs, those who are working in their own this thing? How we are able to, you can say, provide training to the people, because unless and until practical training is not given, it doesn't make any sense, because environment is not only taught in the classrooms. We have to come out, we have to go to fields, we have to go to hills, we have to go to rivers, we have to move outside and see how communities are living, how, what livelihoods they are having. So training part is very essential. So, how do we provide? Through schools. As a subject, we have introduced in the schools. EVS students are studying from grade 1. There's a teacher, there's a timetable. So they are reading through it. They are reading about the different terminologies, different concepts related to environment in the very beginning. They know about climate, weather, wind, air, pollution, all these terms, they are reading, they are knowing about it. Through higher education, through setting up of departments of environment, through mass media, as I said, social media is very active in taking the issues of environment forward through experiencing nature, taking field visits, going outside, through interpretation by analysis of, you can say, policies and other things, and through training and networking, coming in the field, interdisciplinary work, lot of, mix and match, lot of, you can say, sharing of information among the people, because it has already been stressed that environment is not one discipline, but it encompasses lot of other disciplines also. So it has a maths in it, it has a physics in it, it has a biology in it, it has a geology, geography, and whatnot. So you need a thorough networking, thorough training, so as to bring about the desirable results. So what kind of issues when we're talking? So society is must. When you talk about the education initiatives, particularly in the environment domain, understanding of the society, the type of the society, different forms of the society, patriarchal, agricultural society, labor society, working class, different social streams are there in our country. We need to understand what kind of society it is, and accordingly we can take our environmental agenda therein. Economy is very important. It's one of the important aspects which has interfered with all our environment protection measures. So we need to understand that what is the role of economy, how economy is helpful. We have to convince the people that long-term sustainability is actually in the benefit of the economy. However, it is believed that environment protection as measures are very costly. They do not bring so much of returns. So all these types need to be eliminated, and also about the environment. So when I see a society as a whole, uh, as a community, if we take into consideration and think that we have to take our educational environmental objectives here, we we also have to make a kind of a analysis, the whole holistic perspective, where we can see the population, the type of work they are doing, the type of society, economy, and the nearby environmental conditions. So whatever the education initiatives pertaining, because we are at various places, a number of educational programs are being launched at lot of places. Small programs catering to the specific needs, they have been found. But unless and until the society is made to be interested, it is not going to be fruitful. So whenever we are planning any educational program, planning any educational initiative in any region, whether it is Uttarakhand or Gujarat in our country, we have to think about the society, economy, and the environmental conditions in those regions. So the essential elements of environmental education are, as I said, it is cross-sectoral and interdisciplinary, because you cannot talk about watershed management if you do not know the geography, the water resources, if you're not aware about the soil type, if you do not know what kind of occupation people are having there, what is the population of the people over there. Same is the case if we talk about the water conservation methods, if you are taking into consideration the issues related to climate change or waste management, we need to understand, we need to have an interdisciplinary approach and sharing of the diverse perspectives of the people which may be having, because there is no you can say common arriving point in the issues of the environment. There is always debates, arguments, considering the pros and cons of any work that we propose, whether it is building of the dams, or whether it is generation of the electricity through power plants, whether it is construction of the highways, whether it is the um, making or declaring of a national park or sanctuary. There are different perspectives. So those perspectives must be addressed well. Complex processes must be well understood, and one of the important element of environmental education that we have to consider it as a lifelong process. Other forms of education, education, whether it is environmental education or other education, is again, it is a lifelong process. We know that we never stop learning, we never stop growing. So that holds true for the environmental education also, and it should be an international movement, as I said. And I believe that we cannot live in a world where a part of the population is hungry, is deprived, and other part of the continent growing very luxuriously, living very luxuriously. That is not possible. We have to consider it as an international movement, so which is very essential, that global partnership, mutual cooperation, because environmental pollution and the issues, they know no political boundaries, no geographical boundaries. They move from one place to another. Climate change will affect the rich and the poor equally. If the natural disasters occur, they affect everyone equally. Maybe more to the poor, but in the long run, if the present trends continue, they are going to impact the rich also. In the times of pandemic, we have already seen that everybody is equally affected. So make it international movement. Every country has to be involved like that. So an environmentally literate person understands the needs, he possesses the knowledge. We have seen about the knowledge and skills, and also it recognizes the efforts done by others in the way of sustainable development. That is also important if we think about the environmentally literate person who is able to uh, you know shape the decisions, or you can say understands the need and the importance of sustainable lifestyles, and the sustainable measures which are very much essential. Another important aspect, the term which we often come across, is environmental awareness. Everybody is environmentally aware. That is the first step of environmental education. Everybody knows that plastic is bad. Everybody knows that throwing or polluting is bad. Everybody knows about all these phenomena, that what is good for the environment. Everybody knows that planting trees is good. Everybody knows that wasting food is bad. So that is environmental awareness. India is the first country in the world which has an environmental responsibility mentioned in the constitution. Article 48A talks about the duty of the state to maintain and protect the forest and the other natural resources. And similarly, Article 51A tells about the duties of the citizens towards protection of the environment in various forms. So, these constitutional provisions tell us that we have a provision of environmental awareness. But how does environmental awareness differ from environmental education? That we have seen that we may be environmentally aware, but unless and until it is brought into action, it is brought into behavior, habit, it is not going to serve the purpose. So that is environmental education, and environmental awareness is considered to be the first step uh, towards moving environmental education. So if environmental awareness determines that there are complex relationships because many fail to understand the relationship, that why it rains heavily because of cutting of the trees, we don't know. Why the temperatures are rising, why the cyclones keep coming every year, why certain areas of the country are flooded. So this is all complex relationships. So it people, when they are aware, they try to be inquisitive, they try to know about this. And all the common men around, they are keen to know that why is it happening. And they want to have an achievement of knowledge, abilities, and skills so as to solve. Everybody wants to, if we are environmentally aware, we want to write, we want to talk, we want to discuss about these things. And there is a personal commitment and acceptance of responsibility also towards the different components of the environment for population, health, nutrition, because as an environmentally aware citizen, for our well-being in today's times, we have understood very well that environmental awareness and knowledge is key to maintain our social well-being. We know the importance of healthy lifestyles. We have understood the importance of eating good, to growing green outside. These are some of the important. Health is the most important thing that we have discussed. All this goes line in line with knowing about the environment more and more. We have known that how in the times of lockdown we have seen that how clean the air was, how the rivers were clean, how the animals were freely roaming outside. We have reached to the conclusion that we can be well if the ecosystems are in a healthy condition. So as a student, your students where you are teaching, they can play an active role. They can take the risk because we have to inculcate, we have to show them the path that they can be active, engaged and effective citizens, particularly for environment conservation. They can take the risk, trying different models, trying different activities. They can solve the problems through advocacy, and they can provide whatever the stream we are teaching, whether we are teaching in non-science subjects or whether we are teaching the humanities subject. Everywhere we can see that the students, they can be effective agents of change. They can bring the change. And Greta Thunberg is an example and clearly demonstrates that today's teenagers, today's youth are much more concerned about the environments. They prefer buying eco-friendly products. They want to go for organic substitutes of the products which they have been buying. They make environmentally conscious decisions in their day-to-day life. So they can play an active role. The only thing which is required is that we have to educate them in a proper manner. We have to provide them good information. We have to motivate them. We have to tell them ultimately that our well-being and the society's well-being ultimately depends upon the well-being of the environment. So we must make them that they are focusing on the behavior, in the sense that overconsumption is bad, climate change is happening, but then we have to tell them that what should be their behavior to stop using plastic. Then they must be taught to focus on solutions rather than talking about the climate change as a big problem across the globe. In our small school, we can talk about small solutions which the children can make. In our small colleges and universities, we can tell them to bring the change according to our place. And flexibility in the approach. It should not be one size fits all solutions. If it is said that go for afforestation, go for biodegradable plastic, so we have to make conscious decisions. We have to be flexible in our approach, depending upon our conditions, our locations, and considerations of the future. Telling them too much about the endangered species, extinct species, and the past environmental problems will not going to help. We must focus all our attention towards the future problems that we might be having, the future pandemics that might occur. So we should divert all our energies towards making students think in this manner, that they're able to talk about the events which might occur in future instead of the events which have already been occurred. So we talk about London smog, we talk about the Los Angeles smog, we talk about the Bhopal gas tragedy. Okay, fine. But then we must also talk about the future problems which might come, taking small steps as an individual, starting from individual, from the family to neighborhood to our schools, colleges, to their own city, to the state. So likewise, the change occurs, and integrative approach is very, very essential. So in the coming century, if you see environment education and society's needs, these are some of the important skills which will play and which will determine the fate, or you can say the skills of the students in the coming times. That is critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creative problem solving. If we think about the environment problems also, you will find that these skills are very, very important for solving the present day environmental problems also. So inculcation of these skills, development of more these skills right from the beginning it will help our students, and it will also help us in mitigating the environmental issues and solving many of the environmental problems that we are facing in different, you can say, different domains and different areas. So, but we have the challenges that why environmental education is, in spite of the fact that it is linked with our own well-being, to our health, to our prosperity, why we have not been able to, bring it into mainstream. One of the important challenges is that it has a more emphasis on theoretical knowledge than practical experience. This is one of the most important challenge. We give information to our students in the form of theoretical knowledge, in the form of definitions, examples, and the different diagrams that we are giving. That is all theoretical. They cannot go out and solve any single problem which they are facing outside. They cannot fix any small problem. So that is particularly lacking, and for that we there is a, you know right from the curriculum makers, planners, to the teachers who are most of the times not so trained. That is one of the main constraint, you can say. Another important thing is that, as I have been repeatedly saying, is that environmental education must be tailored according to the context. We discuss about ozone depletion, but ozone hole is slowly and slowly shrinking. That must be known to the people according to the specific regions, whether it is a coastal area, water deprived area, landslide area, earthquake prone area, agricultural dominated area. According to that, if we focus the problems, issues, and bring out the solutions, that is more helpful. If they're not knowing about the global problems of environment, it is fine, but they should know about the local environmental problems. Then only it will contribute to the well-being of the people. In many villages, you'll find that their fluoride content and their water is very high. People in the villages are suffering from fluorosis of the teeth, of bones. And the reason may be because of over irrigation or because of some fertilizer or pesticide. But we make no effort in making such kind of interlinkages known to the villages and the people. So that is very much required. Then over engineering the things. We over engineer. We do not rely on the traditional methods. For water crisis management, we prefer to construct the dams. For soil erosion protection, we want to devise some other solution, but will not go for intercropping, not go for other traditional methods. Similarly, for water conservation also. So these type of over engineering and giving less importance to the traditional methods which have been practiced, they are giving less importance. That is a problem, because then when it comes to engineering and technology part, it has a pitfall. Then balance between centralized and decentralized efforts, there are no efforts. The government's flagship programs pertaining to the environment have, you can say, little focus, or you can say little visibility in terms of the decentralized efforts. So that needs to be checked. There are multiple stakeholders and there are difference of opinions everywhere. Ministries, water ministry, fertilizer ministry, agriculture ministry, then small and medium enterprises. So there's always a bifurcation. Different stakeholders are there, whether it is farmers, local people, bureaucrats, NGOs, and it all creates a mess. So there is no solution, but there is always a kind of difference of opinion. So we are never able to arrive at a common solution. And environmental education is altogether missing in our educational programs. So in SDGs also, if you see, there is a provision of different types of education, inclusive, vocational, online education coming up, and this and that. But where is environmental education? It is not standing anywhere. This is one of the main challenge, that in spite of having so many problems, we are not able to link it properly. So while concluding, I must say that social well-being and environmental well-being are related to each other. Environmental education at all levels is necessary, and it should be linked with the practical exercises, practical inputs, and sensitivity towards environmental problems and willingness to get involved in the national and international policies, that can augment with the environmental education. So thank you so much. At the last, I would say that our well-being depends upon the well-being of the environment, and that can come only if we are environmentally educated. We may be holding so many degrees, we we teach in our places, we impart education, but then above all is the environmental education. So the volume of education has increased nowadays, and it continues to increase. But with that education also, the pollution, natural resource degradation, ecological catastrophes, this also has increased. So if more education is to save us, it has to be education of different kinds. We need different kind of education. We need to go into the depth of the issues that we are facing today. Thank you. Thank you so much.